Hello, this is Kelly Hamon, and welcome to Resiliency Coach podcast. This podcast showcases people who have faced difficult times and how they got through it. These experiences are real and sometimes raw. The people who share their stories are here to tell you you're not alone in your struggle. They share the tools and resources they use in healing. If you're looking for solutions, for getting through tough times, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. So today I'm interviewing my friend, Kyra Siva. Kyra went from being severely depressed to having a very fulfilling life through spiritual awareness. So Kyra, thank you so much for being my guest today and sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we're excited to hear your story. So would you be willing to share with us your story now?
Yes, definitely. So when I was a teenager, I went through a really severe depression. And like many people going through depression, nobody knew about it. Nobody listened. Nobody paid attention to all the red warning flags, nothing. And it was one of the darkest periods in my life. I struggled with suicidal thoughts. I had one attempt on my life when I was 12, which was a huge turning point for me in just, finding a way of healing and recovering. But it still took me a number of years after that. And I was actually able to climb out of the deep, dark hole of depression through going through a spiritual awakening. So if you've ever been in depression, I'm sure you guys can appreciate that it is, you feel like you're at the bottom of a well and you're trying to climb up a ladder, and every day those ladder rings just slip and fall and you go back again and again and again and again. My depression started around 11 and really got pretty severe around when I was like 12, to the point where I had my suicide note. I took a 12-inch chef knife into my room and I thought, this has got to feel better to like plunge my heart with a knife and deal with the pain I was feeling. And I want to just share that with you because I have sat with so many people in depression and in that space of being suicidal. Luckily for me, that night, my friend called me and I wound up having a sleepover instead. And that was a huge turning point for me of just saying, I'm supposed to be here. I have a reason to be here. And all of the times I've sat with people that were severely depressed and suicidal, and I think about my story, I'm so glad I didn't do it. I'm so glad I didn't do it, because now I get to have a beautiful relationship. I have so many happy things going on in my life and so many people that I've impacted in a positive way that I would have never been able to have had I done that. So if you're ever in that spot, just know life does get better, things do get better, and you absolutely can turn it around. As I continued being a teenager, one of the biggest challenges I had was I never felt like I fit in. Even though I was super gregarious and people would welcome me into their lives and into their friend circles and I could fit in anywhere, I never belonged. And I think that is not just my struggle, but a lot of people's struggles. You kind of feel like you live outside of the world looking in, outside of people's friends, friendships, looking in at how happy they are. And you're just kind of isolated in being there, but being incredibly lonely, just incredibly lonely. So when I was 18, I moved from the small town I was from in the Pacific Northwest, moved out to Colorado. I knew one person, and I got really, really committed to finding myself and to finally ridding myself of depression. So as I went through that, I actually started to experience spiritual awakening. I got introduced to an Indian saint around the time I was 18. I started my first meditation practice. And it was the first time where I had stepped out of my inherited religion of Christianity into just literally spiritual exploration, which is something that I had always this longing to do, but I never knew what to do or how to do. I didn't know that that's what I was longing for until I had started meditation and started being exposed to Eastern philosophies. And then that just really kind of opened the floodgates for me and wound up completely transforming my life. Going from like feeling so, so much that I hated myself, I didn't even want to be with myself, to actually falling in love with life itself, to actually feeling, this enriched sense of being and knowing like, oh, this was my problem the whole time. I was longing for this thing. I was so disconnected. And now I understand all of these different and complex facets of myself that I needed in order to really go on a healing journey, have healthy relationships, not do the self-destruct button on my life. And that was really just, it made a profound shift in everything and led me even to the line of work that I do today.
That's awesome. So I heard some tools that you use to be able to work with what you were dealing with. One is you had a friend at that pivotal moment that helped you, that accidentally helped you by inviting them over or inviting you over, which was an incredible gift.
Yes.
And then later in life, you were searching for some type of spirituality. And that's the thing and meditation came into the spirituality. And that seems to be the tool that seems to have helped you through that difficulty. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, and there's a lot encompassed within spirituality itself. And I don't need to go into all the different facets of it. There are definitely like key things. One of them, really being having a spiritual framework of belief that is life-affirming, that isn't based in shame, that isn't based in just controlling you as a person. It's something that allows you to see the thick and thin through life and allows you to, trust in the process. Even the days when it doesn't look good, you can be like, okay, well, that's all right, because we're just riding this out. Tomorrow is actually going to be better. And then it is. Yeah.
So you said life-affirming. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So with different spiritual concepts, the one that I really wanted to share today that I think is the most profound spiritual concept that I could have ever embraced and that anybody could ever embrace is unconditional love. I am a love person. I love to love. I love falling in love with life. We kind of define love as this very narrow thing of like, is it parental love? Is it friend love? But there really is this concept of divine love. You exist, therefore you are loved. And that's the only requirement. And that for me profoundly shifted things because I was broken, I was ugly, I was bad, I was making mistakes, right? And when we look in the mirror and we can't stand who we see, and then we say, okay, well, Spirit loves me unconditionally in my broken state, in my ugly state, in my imperfections. And you get to open your heart a little crack, right? At first, a little crack because it's hard. And you allow that love in, that love starts to grow in you. It starts to open everything in you. And that's what it did for me. So even though I didn't feel like I could love myself, I could say, well, Spirit loves me just as I am right now. And I would allow that to open me a little bit. And then I started to practice unconditional love with people. Okay, this person is in front of me. You know what? I'm going to drop all of my judgments about who they are, how they are, what their background is, anything they're doing, and just accept them and love them as they are right now. And when you give that love out, it grows in you and you start to see the world through a very different set of eyes. You start not needing people to do things in a certain way. You don't need stuff to be in a certain way. You can literally just embody this love and give that out. And then pretty soon your heart opens and opens and opens. And a lot of healing takes place with that. So there is a very internal process with that, with yourself. And I would say this is like the number one resource I use to actually climb out of depression, going from completely hating myself to being like, I'm worthy of having healthy relationships. I love myself so much that the people and the places and the choices in my life are just a reflection of that genuine self-love. And that, I think, that concept can be accessible to anybody, to practice and to really integrate.
So you brought up a good point, that when people feel broken, and it's important too that, as you know, none of us are broken. We are full. We are worthy. We are enough as we are, and who we will be, and who we've been. We've always been that person. We just feel like we're broken at this moment, and because of the things that have happened to us or that are in our environment. But we aren't truly broken. And I noticed what you said is that you look to the divine, to the spirit, and you started to see yourself through that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about that perspective. What type of beliefs did you have to shed about yourself? What new beliefs did you need to make for yourself?
Yeah. So when you see, I call it seeing through the eyes of the divine, right? So when you start to experience the world as the underpinning energy of the world is unconditional love. This love that allows you to exist, it allows you to have free will, to make mistakes, to learn, to grow, to choose the right thing. When you start to see that, I had to realize that it was easier for me to be attached to the things that I felt shameful about myself, or that like I said, like you were saying, the things you think you were broken about, than it was for me to actually see that there was this enormous beauty inside of me, that there was all of this goodness inside of me, that there was all of these really amazing things that I had about myself, and all of these people that I had positively impacted that I wouldn't give myself any credit for. So having to drop the idea that the kind of shadowy side of myself was stronger or more important than the light that was within me. I call that, your soul. You're like allowing your soul to come out. You're allowing that essence of who you are. And then realizing that like you said, that broken part isn't really true, that you're not actually broken, and that there is a whole being inside of you, and you're actually quite amazing and quite wonderful. And the focus, instead of on the negative, starts to become on the positive. So that was a really big switch within me with that.
How did you find those things about yourself? Where did you look? How was it outward? Was it people telling you, or was it through other means?
I love that question. I am what I would call the soul explorer. I love the internal game. I love going inside. So there's a combination, right? Because you read spiritual texts. I learned a ton of stuff from my swamis through Swami Kaleshwar of just, the soul and the growth of the soul and human nature and the purpose of being here. So it's like a combination of reading, learning, integrating spiritual texts and concepts, and doing that internal work through meditation, through a lot of asking contemplative questions. Like my favorite question is, who am I? Right? Why am I here? Where do I go when I die? Those kinds of self-inquiry really, really led me to, a more expansive view, and to see that I was so much more than the small kind of game I was playing at the time. And there is definitely an external reflection of that. All the times people would give me compliments that I would shoot down, or just, when people are like, well, we want you to come because like you are our person. We want our person there. So there was the externality, but really for me, it was just going internally, having contemplative questions, doing, journaling exercises, asking a million things, sitting in quiet meditation, and then integrating this different spiritual paths I was listening to and learning about, and really allowing, there's a very organic process that happens with spiritual awakening where you can allow your curiosity and your joy to lead you to the next question. So, say one day I would be like, why can I not let XYZ go? And then I would get something come up with inner child healing. And I would be like, oh, that's right. When I was 7, this really crappy thing happened to me and I took on a belief. Now I can work through that, right? Now I can apply unconditional love and say, well, sweetheart, you were 7. And that person, can we forgive them now? Can we forgive you now? And that's part of that healing process. So that's the internal kind of process that you go through in collaboration with spirit, right? Because you're being guided along your path. What is the next thing that needs healed?
That's awesome. That's beautiful to do that internal work by asking those questions, and the self as well as the spirit will answer the question and lead you to the next question as well as to the answers. And I believe that most religions, organized or non-organized, have that belief, and it's at different levels. So,
yeah,
and I think it's a beautiful part of religion that it does lead us to answers for ourselves and to understand what the spirit believes in us.
Yes. Yeah.
And which is much greater than often we believe in ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a very different experience to believe that you have a higher intelligence or spirit or source, or however you like to say it, that has a plan for you, that has a purpose for you. When you wake up in the morning and you're like, well, my heart's beating, so I definitely have a purpose. And I guess my job now is to go out and figure out what my purpose is. That journey is very different than waking up and seeing the world kind of as a bleak place. And then, you don't really have a purpose and you're, just floating around in life. I think the human experience is very different, feeling that protection and that guidance in that way.
That's awesome. Definitely. Now, what piece of advice would you give somebody that may be dealing with depression right now or have dealt with it? What would you tell them right now?
Yeah. I have 3 pieces, and stay around for the third one because it's the most important. First, if you have this unknowing longingness, in your heart, and you can't figure out what the longing is, but it's always there, I really encourage you to explore spirituality and just kind of drop whatever you think. We all have inherited religions, but drop whatever you think that you know about it and just go explore it, because you could be in the very beginnings of a spiritual awakening, and that again will literally revolutionize your life. The second one that is, I think, so important, and it's something I did even in my darkest moments, is never, ever, ever, ever give up on yourself, no matter what. If you can look up, you can get up. If your heart is beating, you have a purpose. It doesn't matter if the world's given up on you. It doesn't matter if people like you. It doesn't matter if you have the perfect body, the partner, the job, anything. Never give up on yourself, because someday your life will turn around and you will be so happy and so grateful that you get to enjoy the fruits of all of your personal work. And then the third one, and then we just talked about this, but I feel like it is the most important one for anybody in depression. If you want to get out of depression, go for the path of love. Learn about unconditional love. You can learn from any tradition that you want. You can, even if you're an atheist, you can take that concept and just really work with it, because that is your escape route, right? That's the light at the end of the tunnel. What I have seen my life, by the way, especially as a teenager and into my 20s and now into my 30s, I have sat with a lot of very depressed people, and I have sat with a lot of very suicidal people. And the ability to receive and give love is the thing that changes your depression. when you can actually receive the love people are trying to give you, it's very healing. If you can give love, it's very healing. So whatever you can do to walk that unconditional love route, take it, own it, and do it, because I promise you that is such a huge key to getting out of even the darkest places.
That's great advice. And one of the pieces of advice that you gave that may not be as obvious to others, but one of the pieces that you gave without really giving it is to reach out to somebody also, because those who have that have received help through you is because they reached out for help. And it's an important thing, especially if you're having suicidal thoughts. Please reach out for help. There are suicide 800 numbers, and I'll put one down on the bottom underneath the information after the podcast. You'll see it down there for suicide hotline. But if you're having suicidal thoughts, please reach out to a professional, to a friend, to a counselor, to anybody, because the world will not be better without you.
Yeah.
The world will miss you and your influence and what you could have given to us. We need you, and we need your influence and what you can give us.
Absolutely, 100%. And if you can, I always recommend people as well to, find a therapist to work with. Always, if you're in those dark places, as a spiritual healer and guide, I help people energetically and I can hold space, and I'm not a master of dealing with people's minds, so the people that I've worked with, there's a huge, huge encouragement to go see someone. It's totally acceptable and it is so necessary. And I really appreciate you pointing out to go reach out to people, because I think that's often the hardest step. And even if sometimes it's overwhelming for a friend to sit with somebody like that, but call the hotline, call a therapist, call somebody that deals with that on the day-to-day. I couldn't agree with you more, Kelly. Like, we need you so badly. And it's a journey, and you should definitely have all of the support and help you need with that.
I love that. It's a journey. It's reminds me of The Hobbit. And and The Hobbit is not an individual nor a society that would ever take adventures, but our Hobbit in particular chose to take a journey and adventure. And that's what it is. It is an adventure and it is a journey. There are ups and downs, there are mountains, there are rings to steal and to bring back. There are all kinds of things to find along the adventure, but you are the hero of this adventure. And you are the person having exciting times and the down times and the up times. And, the other thing to remember too, whatever goes down must come up. And there are better days ahead of you, just like you said before.
Yeah, I love that. I just want you to all remember that inside of you, there is a completely whole, beautiful, divine being that is here to make positive change in the world, is here to enjoy life. And for as much as you might feel depressed or down or challenged or frustrated or stressed out, just remember that there is somebody even more grandiose and glorious inside of you, and to just love yourself and honor that and respect that and allow that beautifulness, that divine nature in you to come out into your life in whatever way is appropriate for you.
That's wonderful advice. And that was beautifully said. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can visit me on my website, which is kyrasiva.com, or I do have a Facebook page called Empowering Your Spiritual Awakening Journey. You can also visit me on social media over at Instagram or TikTok. My name is Kyra Siva on those.
And can you please spell the names of those?
Yeah, Kyra is Kyrasiva.
That's excellent. Thank you again. Thank you again for sharing your story and your advice with us today. And thank you, audience, for listening to Kyra. And remember, there is a way through your difficulty. Please seek out resources and people who can and will help you. Now, if you're looking for alternative tools for handling difficult times or moving ahead in life, contact us at www.resiliency.coach. Hope you all have a blessed day and a wonderful life. Goodbye.